Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriela Talpa. I'm the Director of Revenue Management for Noble Hotel Shoreditch and Director of Distribution for Noble Hotels. And I will be hosting today's webinar, and our discussion is about the power of first-party data, elevate the guest journey with integrated technology systems. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you Michael Bennett, Chief Marketing Officer from Sendai, and Olivier Jolidon, Global Director CRM and Business Intelligence for Aman Hotels and Resorts. I will hand over to them to introduce you to their organizations and speak about their mission and vision.
Thank you. It's great to be here today. As mentioned, I'm Michael Bennett. I'm the CMO at Sundine. A little bit about us. We're a global hospitality technology company. We're solely focused on hotels and really data centric. Our goal, as you can see on the screen, is really to provide innovative solutions that are focused around the guest journey and really empower the hotel staff to interact with the guests in every touch point.
Thank you, Michael. Olivier?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. So my name is Olivier Jolidon, Global Director of CRM and Business Intelligence with Aman Hotels and Resort. So let me introduce you Aman Resort. I'm not sure if you ever wonder what Aman stands for. In Sanskrit, it means peace. And I think this is completely something that we can feel in any or each resort. We can feel like the peace. We can also feel that it's really like engage with the culture, with the landscape. So it's almost like being at home, like a good friends, you coming at home, and then also like experiencing like a great service and also like a great experience. We have like 32 hotels, and that's across the globe.
I believe lately you have just opened Rosalpina in Italy, so congratulations for that.
That's true.
One of Aman brands, so definitely it's a bespoke brand. Okay, with that saying, let's look at the webinar's agenda. We are going to speak with Michael about the current technology landscape, challenges that Aman were experiencing. We're going to look into the guest journey and discuss about it. And finally, we're going to have a session of Q&A at the end of our webinar. So let's start with Michael. And I know you have talked about the current situation and landscape before. What would you say are the biggest challenges that the industry is experiencing right now as hotels within different areas on the globe are starting to reopen?
Yeah, I think there's 4 or 5 key things. I think the first, that teams have changed. The properties themselves went through significant reductions, and I think vendors went through the same, and we're seeing that challenge evolve in terms of, we saw a lot of talent leave hospitality on both sides, both vendor and from a hotelier standpoint. And they went to other verticals that were less impacted by COVID. And so now we're trying to grow on both sides and hire and get talent back in. And we're finding that it's a challenge. Good talent's hard to come by. So I think that's changed the landscape, right? Less resources on property. Vendors are struggling to accommodate and help and support. So it's a challenge. I don't think it's going to go away soon. I think it's one that we're going to have to deal with at least the back half of this year. I think priorities have changed. Obviously, it's depending on where you are in the world. If you're in the US, you're in full-on recovery mode. If you're in Asia Pacific, you're struggling with border closures and really low occupancy still, and a kind of a mix in EMEA. So that your priorities vary based on where you are in the world. Contactless technology, obviously guest expectations that expedited significantly during COVID because of for all the health related reasons, and we see that continue to pick up. So I think hospitality, our vertical has been historically slow and compared to other verticals like retail and e-com in terms of adopting technology, but consumer demand is forcing our hand. We're seeing hoteliers around the world react to that in a positive way.
So
third-party data going on.
Sorry, which
Sure.
part of the world would you see to recover, earlier than others? In terms
We're
of
definitely seeing the US. I think if you talk to US-based hoteliers, a majority would tell, especially warm weather markets, which we're in summer now, but resort, we're seeing city center come back. It's definitely, and we're hearing in a lot of cases that their levels are above 2019 already in terms of demand and rate. The biggest struggle in the US is labor. Can't find enough people to line level labor to take care of rooms, service the guests, bar staff, wait staff, et cetera. So the labor challenges go farther than just marketing, revenue, sales, right? It goes out throughout the entire industry. We heard that in the airlines. I know we're talking about hotels, but we heard that in the airlines this week with American canceling 1,000 flights a day because they can't service, they can't get enough pilots and flight attendants to keep up with demand. So we're hearing some good recovery stories in EMEA. Generally speaking, in APAC, all of our major customers there are still, majority are in lockdown, a lot of closed assets still in really low occupancy. So hopefully with vaccination rates increasing in that region sooner than later, they'll start full recovery as well. But our forecast, we look at APAC as early next year as starting a full recovery. So we got quite a ways to go there.
Thank you, Michael. Olivier, to what extent is Aman experiencing these challenges?
I think exactly what Michael was saying. It's definitely we see, I would say, like a quicker recovery in the Americas. So that's something very positive. Europe, I would say, follows definitely for all the south of Europe. So that's definitely if we know that the borders are opening, people are willing to travel. So I think that's very positive. Asia Pacific, it's still a challenge because it's you have this open, close, and you need to adapt. Definitely, you need to adapt your strategies, also like your different campaign. So I think that's the latest region that will adapt and recover as well.
Okay. And I guess this is a question for both of you. What advice would you give, hotelier to successfully navigate through recovery? And let's say, are we in the recovery stage at the moment?
I can take that one first. I think, again, it depends on where you are in the world. If you're in Asia Pacific right now, there's a lot of planning to think about what a recovery is going to look like. The good news for that region and Europe and EMEA as well is that they can see how quickly it's coming back in the US, and they can do some more strategic planning around labor, et cetera, so that when it does hit, we thought it would hit hard and fast in terms of recovery in the US, and it did. So there's some lessons to be learned. So if I was in one of those regions, I'd be looking hard at what's happening in the US and preparing for that, expecting the same thing's going to happen. In the US, again, it's unfortunately and fortunately at the same time, everyone's is reactionary, right? We're just reacting to how good the demand is, and then trying to figure out where to reinvest, how to reinvest, what do I need to ensure that I can deliver on all those things we talked about a minute ago. So it's a little bit reactionary in the US, and I think the rest of the world has an opportunity to get pretty proactive based on what they're seeing, would be my 2 cents.
Olivier, what do you think? What about EMEA? Because we also have different scenarios here, right? UK has been ahead with the vaccination and Europe has been a little bit behind. So we thought in UK we're going to be, earlier, on the recovery stage, but with the variant Delta, we see that actually it's still very uncertain. So what do you think, Olivier? What is going to happen? Are we here in the recovery stage, or what?
I think it's depending on where you're at. So definitely you cannot compare like Europe as a whole. Depending the market you have, also like the source market you're in. Also like we're hearing that the US, I would say, region will be traveling to Europe this summer. So it's really like understanding and I would say developing like a strategies for local, domestic, or even like regional and then international. So I think that's the big challenge, because you need to juggle between the 3 different, I would say, tiers, so like domestic, regional, and international. But definitely it's a time, and I would agree with Michael. It's really like to try to learn from the Americas region and be proactive. So how can we learn that and implement in Europe? That's, I think that's definitely the time to sit back and analyze.
Olivier, what do you think? I mean, what can you share? You know, that you have seen to be successful at Aman over this past year.
I think it's this. So the good chance is that we said we need to invest. It's the best time to really like invest. So first step, we analyze what we have. Do we have like the system in place for the different verticals? Because we do have different businesses. So we do have the resort part. We have like more like the retail, the skincare, like private jet. So to understand which system do we have in place, do we have the right system? But then also like how can we make this even better? So that we understand we almost have like one central CRM system, having all the data in one place, but then also like pushing it back to the hotel, pushing it back to the different departments. So I think that's the success. Is really like to empower hotel staff with the data, and clearly also like to give this information, because I think that's the key.
Michael, what does a hotelier need to consider along the guest journey to ensure an exceptional guest experience and to create memorable moments at every touch point? We spoke about, you know, delivering data at every touch point of a guest from the guest journey. So what is it important for a hotelier, you know, to consider?
Yeah, I mean, all of the things you currently see on the screen are important, but at the core of it, you have to have a system, right? Whether it's a CRM or a CDP or a combination of both, you have to be able to have a system that can collect that data, cleanse it, dedupe it, append to it if you're interested in understanding deeper, you know, richer information about your guests themselves, and then be able to deliver it back, right? So whether you're trying to personalize your website, or you're trying to enhance your digital marketing, or deliver that back to the front desk or a concierge in terms of trying to enhance the on-property experience. You know, to Olivier's points about having that system and being able to deliver that central system, deliver the data back. You also have to have the ancillary systems that can accept it, right? And you know, we're really focused on API-centric connectivity with all of our partners around the globe. You know, whether that's PMS or on property or back of the house or POS, whatever it is, so that they can get that really rich data that we have to really surprise and delight and take care of the guests. Because at the end of the day, that's the end game. So
if you have to summarize, what are the benefits of a fully integrated tech stack along the guest journey?
I mean, the singular one's the single point of truth, right? You have a single guest profile that's rich. You understand their propensity to spend, what they've spent, what they're interested in, and it gives you a point of leverage, right? That you know that guest, and then secondary to that, that enables you to go out and find more guests that look like your best guests. So understanding your segmentation, you know, this is what my midweek leisure versus midweek business versus weekend group versus weekend leisure, with family, without family, what those very best guest personas look like, and then go out and find more of them. So you can build on you know, you're much more nimble in terms of your demand generation and your revenue management versus just throwing a net out there hoping you might find some guests that look like what you actually want in your property.
Olivier, do you want to add anything on this point, the benefits of a fully integrated tech stack along the journey, the guest journey?
I completely agree. I think it's the tech stack is the most important part. So definitely having all the system in place. So having this single, I would say, data lake or CDP, but then also like that. What is important is how do we also like deliver this wow factor to everyone? So the experience, is it at the very first touch point when you're doing like on the website, maybe like more like marketing standpoint, but then also like when people are booking, so all the transactional, so that you have all the individual preference. And I think for Aman, it's like at the ultra luxury segment. So you need to have a seamless touch point. You need to have the experience need to be very easy. So I think that's back to technology, how to make it easy. And then having all this information, getting it back to the hotels so that when someone is checking in, that we can really like enhance the experience. So to deliver the best experience. And I think that's the key. It needs to be individual. It needs to be very, I would say, personalized and not just like mechanical. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially in the luxury segment. We need to have a very individual approach to the luxury, especially now that the concept has moved from the word, to the meaning, let's say. Michael, can you explain a bit about third-party data and why first-party data is becoming so much more important nowadays, especially nowadays?
Sure. Yeah, it's ever evolving. So I think, understanding, the third-party data piece, right? So data that you're getting from the outside, cookie-related data, things, speaking marketing specific, that's ever evolving. Privacy's obviously tightened down significantly over the last couple of years. Apple's locking it down significantly on their devices. Google, up until this morning, was going to take away cookies in January of 22. They've now extended that to January of 23. So interesting to see how the implications, what comes from that, definitely changes a lot of thinking around. There's a lot of aggressive movement to try and figure out how to understand who's on your site, how you're tracking them, how you're using them. But from a first party data standpoint, just makes it so your owned data, that profile data you have and whatever system you have, is literally the most valuable asset you have, understanding that guest data, because your ability to collect it and just go out and say, hey, I want to buy a list or I want to append from any third party source is quickly going away. So you have to do it yourselves, right? And the more you understand about your own guests, the better your opportunity and the propensity in which you can actually go and find more of them. So if you're not collecting first party data today and enhancing it and making it richer with everything you're doing, you're going to fall behind, because your ability to go out and just acquire it like we could historically is nearly ending.
Okay. Olivier, what is your experience with managing data at Aman?
I think data is a very complex topic. So it's not like an easy topic that you just say, I have the best tool, I have all the system in place. It's very, I think, critical to just understand completely the data. So which data do we have? Which data do we need? And then also like, how can I enrich my first party data? So I think that's clearly like the end goal. It's to have this data, that you own the data, but also like enrich it with the tools. Definitely that you centralize everything together, but then also like merge it, dedupe, and so on. But also that you, and I'm coming back to this, is that you train the hotel front office, the hotel reservation. But even like at the restaurant, so that when they speak with the guests, that they also collect maybe some information about preference, and this needs to go back to the guest profile, and then obviously also like to the system itself, and that's all data that you can collect also during the stays, during the different touch point that you have. So I think it's clearly like I think it's technology, but also like this human training part is very critical.
So how are you now prioritizing, first party data, and what are your plans for the future, considering this transition?
So as mentioned, we did a couple of months ago, we did an extensive RFP. And clearly we wanted to have one system that helps us in terms of the different verticals that we have, but also more to help the B2C side and the B2B side. So we need to have one system that treats the different businesses. And with NextGuest now part of Sendai, we did find the right partner. I must say that's the clear first step we did. So find the right partner, then also like implement it, but also that the hotels understand how to use it. So that we have a very solid tool, but also like on a day-to-day, you need to use it. And also like, I would say that people live for the system. So I think that's the really like the step that we are just now. And then the next step is also like to, I would say, to even enrich more the data. So we will also like implement like a member portal on aman.com. This will give like almost like the rights to the user or to the guest to enrich the data, change the data. But also from our side, we can then market some offers, some experience through the portal. So that's, I think, the last missing piece that we are still having. And having this, then we really have like I would say the different piece of the puzzle to make the data right.
Yeah, I think from my experience at Noble, the most one thing that I learned is to train people to use the platforms correctly, because though the people are the ones to input the data, and the accuracy of the data depends on their ability to use the system. So I would say that's challenging. It needs to be, from the central office to be coordinated and ensure that everyone is on the same page. Okay, I think at the moment I would ask Michael, sorry, what kind of guidance can offer to those in a similar situation to Olivier, and perhaps share some ideas on how smaller independent hotels can navigate this challenging time with the limited resources that they have. Not everyone has an integrated system. I'm coming from distribution. I used to work for small luxury hotels of the world, and I was actually distribution manager. So a lot of independent hotels, they don't have not even the PMS integrated with the CRS to start with. So what kind of guidance or advice can you give them, in this situation? Ideally, we would want everything integrated.
It's an interesting challenge, and one that we hear a lot, in particular from the EMEA region, for the smaller independent hotels, where the GM is the marketing manager and the revenue manager and the sales manager and
yeah,
coverage manager, right? Like they're doing everything. So I say, there are solutions out there, right? Like we our flagship product is Enterprise CRM and CDP. But we have a CRM solution for small independent hotels that's cost effective, that can help them, for $2,500 a year. They can come in and they can it'll connect to the PMS, and if they have a archaic PMS or an old PMS or one that doesn't connect, it can take a flat file and import it and gives them the basic functionality, right? They can do transactional emails. Has a little mobile concierge piece, has a guest survey, allows them to do marketing emails, sort of the core functions of a CRM, but at a smaller scale and an affordable scale, so they can do something. Because that's the short answer, right? You need to do something, because especially if you're an true independent, and you're competing against sort of the soft brands that are part of Autograph or Curio, or these collections that are growing on a global basis that are sort of in the independent space, they have the distribution, right? They've got all the Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Accor engines behind them, and they're getting some of those tools. So if you've chosen not to align with a soft brand, you need to do something. So we have a solution. There's several other out there on the market as well. But you have to do something, because the reality is the guest expects it, whether they're going to stay at Aman or Marriott or anything in between, including independents. The guests have an expectation now of how they're going to be communicated to, being able to do that, digitally, right? They want to be able to submit their request digitally. They don't want to have to pick up a phone. So there's lots of tools out there. There's lots of cost-effective tools, including the ones that we have.
Okay, Olivia, you're in the process of optimizing your technology systems through partnership with Sendai. Why did you choose Sendai, and which pain points do you hope to eliminate through this partnership?
I think it's clearly like what we're looking at. It's like a system that covers all the needs that we have. But even more than that, it's I think it's more than that. It's really like to find someone that we can also like discuss, brainstorm, and find solution. Because maybe back to your question before to Michael about like smaller independent hotels. We do have very small niche hotels. We also do have different businesses that we need to find solutions. So it's not, I would say, something that we can implement across the board. So we need really like this flexibility, but also like having like a sparring partner to understand how can we maybe on different phases implement the best system, and then at the very end like achieve our main objective, which is definitely to connect all the data points in one big data lake, if we can call it like that, but also to have like a single customer view. So that's, I think that's the end goal of us. I think that's clearly this. It will help us, like, first of all, like to collect all the data. So not to have like different system and siloed approach. That's, I think that's the most important. And the second point is once we have it, how can we use the data to be smarter with, I would say, experience, but also be smarter with marketing and also like BI. So all the analytics, all the business intelligence, I think it's the key. It's understanding the numbers, understanding also the segmentation. So how do we do the segmentation? How do we maybe talk to the best customer, or how do we talk to customers that came last year but didn't come this year? So that's, I think that's the very key, and definitely the this I would say this technology will help us to achieve this.
Okay, thank you so much. Michael, do you want to add anything else?
I mean, I could wrap it up just a couple of points, and it piggybacks on what Olivier just said, right? That understanding your data is key for success. You know, use the systems you have to encourage collaboration, automation, and personalization. Automate tasks. That goes to the people piece, right? We have fewer resources on property and at corporate, so automation's key. Again, Olivier just said it, using technology to wow your guest, right? Surprise and delight, and all, not just in person, but through all your communication methods. And then again, you have to connect your technology, centralize all that data, which ultimately ends up in a more personalized guest experience through the whole journey.
I think a very key point as well is, and we said it, we do need to also like to be better in the process. So I think that's very important, is how to automate, how to make it more clever, and then really like spend time where you can then also like grow your business. That's the key.
It is actually quite surprising that hospitality is the environment where, you know, technology has developed so fast. Still a lot of hotels struggle, you know, to have a technological input in that sense.